My life has always been an extremely exaggerated, animated version of what I think most people experience. And in fact, I'm going to blame that for my bad habit of when people ask me how I'm doing. If I run into somebody, bump into them on the street, they'll ask how I'm doing. I'll say, oh, everything's good, just trying to stay off Dateline. And some people are very off put by that. Some people who know me well enough will laugh and know exactly what I'm talking about. And then some people will have no idea what I'm talking about and just kind of hurry along. I think part of me does it just for that reaction sometimes. Because I know people are half expecting me to just politely say, I'm good, how are you doing? And, just the polite exchange of a greeting. But there was this one gal I was shopping and it came time to check out and the kids are just all over me and they're climbing and they're out of control, when you need your kids to behave. And I go to check out and I can't get out of there fast enough. And she says, how has your day been? Just in a very polite, naive, like, I'm going to do my customer service and get you the hell out of here because you and your kids are driving me nuts. I said, oh my God, just trying to stay off Dateline. And much younger than I was. And all of a sudden, she stopped in her tracks and she looked up at me. And this was the time where we were wearing masks. So you couldn't quite get my sarcasm. Those were terrible for my sarcasm. But she stopped and she kind of thought about it for a second. And she goes, isn't that the true crime show, like the murder show? And I said, it is. And her face and her eyes, and then she burst out laughing. And this lady next to us just had this look on her face. And again, we all had masks on, so you couldn't quite tell what the thought process was. But it was one of just like, did that lady just say she's trying to stay off Dateline? I'm Nikki Lynn Chase, and these are my stories. This is my journey about navigating life's very exaggerated, unexpected events as a single mom to two special needs kids. Truth be told, I don't even allow myself to watch Dateline, at least not anymore. It's a huge trigger for my anxiety, and it makes me feel very uncomfortable that I can identify with a lot of the stories. I can put myself in that place because I lived a little episode of Dateline when I was married, oddly enough. There are a few things I won't allow myself to watch, and that's mostly because there was a movie I watched. I couldn't relate to it so much, but I just wanted to unsee it. I remember it's called The Paperboy. I think it was about 10 years ago. And I judged the movie by the cover. I had no idea what it was about in my defense. At least those true crime shows, you kind of know what you're getting into. Dateline, you definitely know what you're going to get into, but this particular one, I had no idea. It was just a bunch of the picture on the front was a bunch of actors I really liked, and they were in a convertible car. I kind of thought it was about like a road trip adventure. And my God, I just remember Googling for like 2 weeks. How do you unsee this? Any tips for unseeing a movie? Because it just tormented me. And the only other movie I can ever remember wanting to unsee and kind of delete out of my mind was my own made for Hollywood movie, and that was a movie I titled Crouching Tiger, Hidden Husband. Didn't make it to the big theaters, but man, it replayed in my head a bazillion times because it was the defining moment that had me exit my marriage. And I had no idea what my exit plan was. I knew my marriage wasn't sustainable. I was not aware of that at the time. I knew he had a wandering wiener, I think, to put it the nicest I can. He was extremely volatile. He was extremely abusive. I was begging my friend to tell me, what is it going to take to leave this guy? Like, he's awful. And she would tell me, it's going to take hurting your kids. And that was the one phrase I just couldn't get out of my mind. And it made me scared. It made me crazy. And I realized she was absolutely right because he had done so many things to me for so many years. And those were not the things, those were not there were the yellow flags, the warning signs. There were the red flags, the brighter warning signs. And there were the neon flags that had caused me to up and move a few times or get out of our situation a few times. But I kept going back. And at this time, it was getting closer and closer to, I can't stay in this. This is not safe for anybody, not myself and not for the kids, of course, the most important things to me. Well, we had a home in Denver and we were fixing it up to sell it. And he was heading down to Denver all of the time to fix it up. And I just could never revisit any part of my past. And I was at this point with Sandler, who was not doing well at all, just in complete and total survival mode. And it was taking Sandler from the mountains to Denver constantly to go to children's with Bootsy. You know, of course, she was accompanying us all the time. And this was a trip where we were heading down, and their dad happened to be down there. Let me put fixing up the house in quotes because I never knew what he was really doing down there. I just knew he'd go down there all the time and supposedly fix up this house. And it was, it was a fixer upper. It was a piece of shit, to be honest with you. And at the time, this particular trip down to Denver, there was no furniture in it. So there was just one room that had a blow up mattress. There was no other furniture. There was no, I say that because it plays an important part a little later in the story, but there's just nothing. And I didn't know the neighbors. I didn't ever spend any amount of time down there. But we had agreed to meet up. We were going to have some dinner and then head back to the mountains the following day. Although I had kind of packed a bag and I was going to head out on a trip. I was going to go to California the next day because I just needed a break. I had it all squared away. I didn't trust him with the kids. And so I had a pseudo family member who was going to meet the kids once they got back to the mountains. And I was just going to take off for a couple days, go to California and just try to reel it in for a minute, go see a good friend of mine. And so we get to dinner and he starts saying, God, you really need a break. I always go snowmobiling and I always go, I'm always down in Denver and you really need a break. And he was saying that absolutely half-ass, not expecting that I had this whole plan up my sleeve. And I said, Bunny, you should say that. I'm going to head out tomorrow. I'm flying out of Denver and I've got my bag packed. Don't worry about the kids because I knew he could never handle it. But the main thing was, you've got to get back to the mountains. Like, get the kids back to the mountains. So he seemed okay with it and great, whatever. But we went back to the Denver house. I think he felt a little bamboozled. And there's a knock at the door and I get the kids ready for bed. And this person comes over and it's a neighbor and I've never met her in my entire life. And not not a very attractive gal at all. I mean, very gruff and very, I guess the best way to explain the style was she had this large cell phone, like a large, heavy cell phone, and it was harnessed onto her belt. And I just was very surprised. They seemed to know each other very, very well. And she brought over a few glasses of wine, or a few wine glasses, and a bottle of pomegranate wine. And there was something weird. There was something very off. And I just kind of sat there like, I don't think I enjoy this person's company. And I'm going to hit the hay. I'm going to go get in bed with the kids and just wrap this up so that I can get to the airport and you can get back to the mountains with the kids. It was very odd, but again, like, I wasn't thinking twice about anything. And so there were so many times where he'd forget to come home. And often those times were days on end. And there was lots of drinking going on. I think there was a lot of things going on. And I was none the wiser. I didn't want to know, honestly. I didn't want to know. I wasn't at the time. I had no idea what my exit plan was. I didn't have an exit plan. I knew there needed to be one, but I didn't know. It was just complete and total survival mode. So I'm not thinking anything's out of the ordinary, and nothing was, because this was my ordinary. My ordinary was he might or might not come home for several days on end. I might not hear from him for several days on end. I will continue to carry on and just, the reaction, just try to keep the peace and keep us safe. So I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and again, there's no furniture in the house because we're getting ready to sell it. So there aren't hiding places is the point. And I can't find him anywhere. And I'm like, oh God, not now. Like, I need to get on a flight in a few hours. Like, I've got to go. And all I could think was, oh my God, he's gone next door. Like, he must have gone next door. And the drinking must have continued. He must have gone next door and continued to drink with the odd, weird, crazy, strange neighbor that I didn't particularly care for. And now I'm going to have to walk over there. And this is so embarrassing. I'm going to have to go get him. So I knock on the door, and it takes a little while. Again, it's 3:30 in the morning. I don't know this person. I'm not a frequent visitor to the house in Denver. I don't know what's gone on any of the times he's been down there, the gazillions of times. And she comes to the door. And she's got this itty bitty tiny pink terry cloth robe on, which was a very different appearance from the harnessed cell phone on her belt. And she says, yeah. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry and I'm so embarrassed, but is my husband here? And she kind of waits to tell me, and she's like, yeah. And I'm not thinking anything still. And I'm like, okay. And she kind of takes off running through her home. I stupidly, literally just follow behind her, kind of chasing this lady. Where is he? Like, I have to get to the airport. He's got to get my kids back to the mountains. I'm not thinking about anything, but I do get following her through her kitchen. And they just definitely got like a little quick step in there, a few steps ahead of me. And she's moving pretty quickly. And it does kind of come to mind. I'm like, there's music and candles. It's 3:30 in the morning. But I'm still just delusional. There's no way. I'm next door. What? And she goes downstairs, and again, I'm following her because she seems to be on the mission to find him. I'm expecting him to be passed out on a couch somewhere. I don't know the layout of her house. She ends up in a bedroom, and I'm assuming it's hers. She starts patting the bedding, like the light's on. She's patting the bed, saying his name. And that's when it dawned on me. And she looked at me. I mean, he wasn't in the bed. And she looked at me, and her eyes got as big as freaking the moon. And she takes off running out of the bedroom. I'm like, wait a minute. And I look over, and there's a pile of his clothes that he was wearing on the floor next to the closet. And I open the sliding mirrored closet door, and he's butt naked, crouching down in the closet. I'm like, wow. You need to get home. I'll meet you there. And I just went back next door, and all I remember is going into the bathroom and looking in the mirror, and I got this huge smile on my face. And I thought, well, you needed a sign, and I think you just got your sign before the kids get hurt. And that's it, because I could never unsee what I saw. And it kind of confirmed all of the wandering wiener events that had taken place. I'm like, now there aren't any questions of, did that really happen? Because he was very good at convincing me otherwise. And I thought, no, I'm pretty sure you just found him next door naked in the neighbor's closet. I'm quite certain every one of the times you ever had that gut feeling or that hint of, I think something's awry here, Nikki, it's absolutely confirmed right now. And I called the couple of friends I was coming to visit in California, and I'm like, what do I do? My biggest concern was, it wasn't so much because even though so many crazy things had happened, it wasn't so much the action, because that was always just shocking. Even though I never thought I could be shocked, I was always shocked. And when you're shocked, you're not thinking of how you react. You just react, flight, fight, whatever the case may be. But it was his reaction to to his behavior. And that's why it was scary. That's why this friend said it's going to take hurting the kids, because he would do things and then he'd be so angry with himself. But we were who he'd take it out on. I was always the person he'd take it out on. I was the easy person to take it out on. And I was the one that just kind of came back for more, and I didn't leave. And I said, what do I do? What do I do? I told them, and they'd both known him for so long, and they said, Nikki, get on a flight. You guys are going to kill each other. Like, this is not going to, they knew what the reaction would be. And I knew I got to the airport. I remember I drove myself there because I was only going to be gone again for 2 nights. And I thought to myself, I just need him to get the kids to the mountains, because then they're taken care of. And I had backup. I had a friend of mine in Denver, and I said, look, if the kids don't make it, I need you to go over there and just get them up to the mountains. There's somebody that's going to be at my house that's going to watch them for 2 days. I just need to get out for a second. And I got to the airport, and I remember he called, and I just kept telling myself, you didn't see that. You didn't see that. Just keep the peace. And he was trying to explain that he had gotten drunk with her and wet his pants and taken off his clothes, and then he didn't know what to do when I showed up. And I said, it is totally, you're just fine. It is all good. And I knew I just needed to keep it at least copacetic enough to get on this flight and get him to take the kids back to the mountains, which he did. And I said, just go do your thing, and I will be back. And I took that little trip to California, and it was fortunately to see the friend that knew everything that was going on in my life. And we both sat there, and of course we laughed about it. I feared my life for what I was going to come home to, because I knew the reaction. I knew several days in between, a few days in between seeing him, and I knew he hadn't been back to the house. I knew he had dropped the kids off with the person that was going to stay with them and had taken off. And I can't even describe oh shit, what am I going back home to? I knew after finding that scenario that was the end. Like, that was it. That was the defining moment of, I can't go there ever again. I can't deny what I literally just found and saw. And so I got back, and when I got back, there were very important elements of my life that were missing. Very big thing, there were computers, there was all of the money, everything was gone. I had put my travel documents and the kids' travel documents away. Fortunately, I feared so much the reaction of his return, because I knew a few days in between, even though it was probably a bender and just a checkout, I knew there was still going to be that, ultimately there was going to have to be that return. And we were going to have some sort of exchange of, it was kind of obvious what happened. And there was so much just, holy shit. There wasn't really time to think. There was just time to react to his reaction. And the return wasn't pretty. It was crazy, scary scenario. And that's when I thought, okay, this is the part where the kids are going to get hurt. And that's when I packed the 3 duffel bags and just kind of made the quick exit plan. The one I should have had a long time before that, but I made a quick exit plan because that neon blinking sign said, you're not going to live through this. This will be your version of Dateline, and you're not going to get to see the end or how it ends, because you will be the end. So today's special edition is something I'm just going to call hashtag Leave, Live, Laugh. I don't even know how hashtags work, to be completely honest with you. I'm the least tech savvy person in the world, and I am not a very advanced social media individual, but I've often just hashtag things because sometimes it makes me feel young. Sometimes it makes me feel cool. Again, I have no idea how they work. I don't know how all of that stuff talks to each other. But for me, my mission isn't to expose a bunch of people who have done people wrong or to expose people who have been done wrong. It's to simply hope that by just telling my story in an authentic, real, honest, hopefully entertaining way, that it might inspire somebody to just understand you're in good company and you've got the ability to leave. When I left that situation, I was so embarrassed that it took finding him naked in the neighbor's closet and not all of the other shit that he had done. It wasn't all the abuse. Of course, all of that was leading up to it, but that was the scary stuff. I mean, it was undeniable when I had found the person that I had not only procreated with, but had spent so much time trying to be the perfect at the beginning girlfriend for, and then the perfect wife for, and then inevitably that I couldn't unsee that. Just like the paper boy, there are just certain things you can't unsee, and um, I think it's very important for me to just remind myself and tell myself I wasn't stupid, but I was so embarrassed. And it was very hard to convince myself otherwise. He was very good at what he did, obviously. And I was convinced that I was worthless. I think more worthless than I was convinced that I was stupid. I knew what was going on. I was just embarrassed of that. And, the control was amazing. I mean, it really was fascinating how under control I was and how comfortable he made me feel in fearing him and fearing my life and fearing my children's life. And that was my comfort zone. And when we did relocate, and I kind of had that first time when we fled Colorado and then we end up in the state of Washington, I'll never forget the one time in particular where, people were helping out, but people had to keep themselves safe and they knew the crazy that was going on. And there were a couple people that were there and helping us and kind of homing us. And they kind of had, I could tell there had been a meeting, and I was not part of that meeting, but I was going to be the recipient of the paperwork that they'd gone over. And it was a stack of shelters, women's shelters I could take the kids to because that was kind of it's time to go. And I think everybody just needed to protect themselves. I understand that. But at the time, I remember my first thought was it would be so much easier for me to honestly go back to what I was living and where I was living and with whom I was living, because fearing for my life with him was a lot more comfortable than thinking about fearing my life in an unknown territory of a woman's shelter. And the woman's shelter grossed me out. All of it grossed me out. The uncomfortable and the unknowing of what my life was going to be, I guess in a weird way, fortunately, was so fast paced with excitement and crazy that I didn't have a lot of time to stop and think immediately after that. I did find a house to live in with the kids. I mean, immediately. That was my sign too. You better find something quick because these people don't want to continue to put their lives in danger with your situation, and rightfully so. And I wasn't going to go to a woman's shelter. And yeah, they're called safe houses, I guess, for a reason. But that I knew that wasn't going to be my safe house. I knew I needed to handle this in my own way with my own directive. These things happen, and everyone says, "Gosh, if I would have just known." Well, you get to a point where you can't just tell anybody. That's part of the whole manipulation process, and it really is. They're good at what they do. They manipulate, and they make you feel isolated, and you feel embarrassed. You feel ashamed. It, the first few times you leave, you tell more people, and then the groups get smaller, and then you don't tell anybody because you're embarrassed because you know there's a chance you're going to go back, and then you become an eye roll of like, well, ooh, what'd you expect? And I get that too. I've even come across people after my experience where that's my thought, and I'm like, I know I can't help you. I can give you my story, do what you will with it. One of two things you can do. You can keep going forward, the unknown, figure this out as you go along, or you can go back where the known is going to be the episode of Dateline. We know how that ends. We don't always know who did it or if that person is going somewhere for what they did, but you know how Dateline ends. And that was going to be the other end. And I had to go forward. If I wanted the kids and myself to live and survive and ultimately thrive, I was going to have to continue going forward into the unknown. And we did, and we continue to do so, and hope that this does just give somebody at least a little bit of company, or a little bit of an oomph to get out and seek help, seek support. But man, once you go, you gotta get the giddy up and get out. Please tune in next week for an episode about parents and parenting and the parents you meet in both the typical kid world and the special needs world. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. You can find me on adultchicken.com. Get the .com in there, or you get a plethora of adult chickens or pictures of them. You can find me on YouTube, Adult Chicken. Also, you can find me on Apple and Spotify podcasts, Adult Chicken, as well as Instagram, adult_chicken, and TikTok, adult_chicken.